Chapter 19. The Boy on the Train. Mum came in and Kat sat on the desk, on top of the photos in the theory list. "Hi guys," Mum said. "Hi Mum," said Kat. She swung her legs backwards and forwards and stared into space. "This isn't much of a half term for you, is it?" "Don't worry, Mum, we're fine." Mum smiled. Then she said that police were visiting us again and we should go downstairs in case they wanted to ask us anything. Then she went out and Kat got off the desk. She hid the theory list and the photographs in the little drawer under my desk. Then she picked up the souvenir picture and said that she'd hand it over to the police, just in case it was of use. Then she went out of my room. I reopened the drawer. I found my favourite photo, the one Salem had taken of Kat and me on the footbridge. I looked as if the corner of the London Eye was emerging from my shoulder. Then I put it in my book of weather systems between cyclones and anticyclones, where it would be safe. Then I followed Kat downstairs. Soon the police car drew up and Mum and Aunt Gloria took the same places on the sofa, and Dad showed in Detective Inspector Pierce, who was on her own. She sat on the same chair as yesterday. Nobody said anything for a minute. Then Kat went up and offered her the souvenir photograph. "I'm sorry we didn't give it to you sooner," Kat said. "I meant to yesterday, but we forgot, didn't we, Ted?" I said. Detective Inspector Pierce took the photo and shook her head and smiled. "We already have that one, Kat," she said, "along with 64 others. But thank you anyway." Aunt Gloria grabbed the photograph and peered at it. "What is this?" "It's a picture of the people in the pod, Aunt Gloria," I explained. "The pod that..." "Not a trace of Salem in any of them, I'm afraid," Detective Inspector Pierce said, "nor in the CCTV. I've been checking much of it myself. In a particular pod of a rather large gentleman," she leaned over and pointed to the big white-haired man in the raincoat, stood in the same spot for nearly the whole ride and blocked much of the camera's view. Aunt Gloria tossed the picture down on the floor near my feet. I picked it up. "You know what I think?" she said. "I think he never went up that damn wheel in the first place." "That's an interesting theory, Aunt Gloria," I said, "and one that I considered too. But..." "Ted," Mum said. She put a finger to her lip. That is body language even I've learnt to read. It means, "Be quiet." There was another silence. Then the inspector said she had a possible lead. A boy matching Salem's description had been seen at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon by a guard at Euston Station, dodging the ticket barrier and getting on the train just moments before the doors were locked. "A train? What train?" Aunt Gloria said. "An intercity between London and Manchester." "Manchester? But that's where we'd just come from. Why would Salem go back there?" The boy, if it was Salem, was on his own. Unfortunately, that's where we lose sight of him. The guard on the train has no memory of him. He could have gotten off at any of the stops in between, but the Manchester police are checking to see if Salem is perhaps in Manchester. "With his dad," Aunt Gloria said. "He is not with his father, I'm afraid. It was the first place we looked. The inspector produced Salem's address book. We've spoken to everybody who told us he was close to. His cousins, Ramesh and Yasmin, your neighbours, the Tysons, his school friend Marcus Flood, and his old friends from primary school, Paul Burridge." "And?" "None of them say they've heard from him since the day you left yesterday." I said. "That's..." "Hush, Ted," said Mum. "If Salem did go to Manchester," Detective Inspector Pierce said to Aunt Gloria, "where do you think he'd be most likely to go?" Aunt Gloria stared into the space in front of her and then sighed. "I don't think," she said. "Sorry. I think the boy on the train is like the boy last night, the boy in the morgue, the boy you thought was Salem and wasn't." Detective Inspector Pierce reached over and touched Aunt Gloria's hand. "I'm sincerely sorry about that, Gloria. We didn't have a proper photo ID then. We do now." From a brown envelope she's been holding us, she took out a photo of Salem and showed it to us. "Your ex-husband gave us this. Would you say it's a good likeness?" Salem was in a school blazer with a sweatshirt underneath and a faint line of moustache over his lips. He was not looking either happy or sad in the photograph because his lips were straight, neither up nor down. "That's him," Aunt Gloria whispered. "I bought 2 copies so that Salem could give one to his father, to Rashid. I do it every year. I don't know why. I don't even know if Rashid has framed them. I don't." The doorbell rang. Dad went out to the hall to see what it was. I heard voices and then in walked a tall Indian man in jeans and a green shirt. "Speak of the devil," Aunt Gloria hissed. I only heard her say this because I was standing next to her. I didn't see anything particularly satanic about the strange man. I thought he must be another plainclothes officer. My hand flapped. "What's this?" the man said. "Have you found my son?" He looked at Aunt Gloria. She looked at him. What are you doing here? I'm looking for my son. What else? Trust you to lose him. Maybe Saturn had entered the room after all because everyone started talking very loudly. I put my hands over my ears, but I could still hear them. I counted the people in the room. 7. I tried to guess the ages of those I didn't know. Then I added up all the ages, actual or approximate, of all present, when I arrived at the figure of 233, and worked out the average age was 33.3 recurring. Everyone was still shouting their heads off. The difference between laughing your heads off and shouting your heads off is that the one you were happy with and the other you were angry. I like it much better when people are laughing their heads off. Detective Inspector Pierce got up from her chair. I'd better go, she said, but I'm not sure that anyone listened except for me and Dad, who had not joined in the shouting either. Dad showed her out to the hallway and I followed. You could still hear the raised voices in the living room. Goodbye, Mr. Spark, Detective Inspector Pierce said. I'm sorry again about last night. I felt Dad's arm on my shoulder tighten. Will you find out who that poor boy was? We're working on it, Inspector Pierce said. And as for Salem, when everyone's calmed down, can you ask them if you would agree to us calling the press? The press? Yes, if Salem's picture gets in the news story, somebody who might have seen him will come forward. Dad nodded. I'll ask them. Inspector Pierce, I said, my hand flap. Salem got a call on his mobile yesterday, at approximately 10:50 a.m. He said it was from a friend calling from Manchester to say goodbye. Did he? How interesting, she smiled at me, which means she and I could be friends. If only some of the officers had half your brains, Ted. Then she nodded and walked down the tiny garden path to where the police car was parked. Dad and I went back to the living room. Rashid was saying that the police had burst into his busy evening surgery last night, that all his patients must have thought he was another Dr. Death, which was the name newspaper editors gave to a very evil doctor who killed dozens of patients instead of making them better for no reason other than he liked doing this. Aunt Gloria was clinging to a cushion as if she was about to throw it at him, and saying that all he ever cared about was why people thought about him. Mum was standing up and holding Cat by the elbow and ushering us back to the hallway. She closed the living room door behind her. God almighty, let's leave them to it, she said. Let's go get a pizza, for pity's sake. So we did. Pitty must have been pleased because we had 4 enormous pizzas at the pizza restaurant nearby. I had a Coca-Cola, Cat had a Sprite, and Mum had a beer. Dad had a bottle of sparkling water. Dad and I ate all of ours. Mum and Cat swapped their last slice and left only bits of the crust, which meant that everybody had been extremely hungry. And over the meal we did not talk about Salem. I talked about thunderstorms and why they happened, and Cat showed Dad how she removed the silver nail polish from her hands that she said she was glad Catwoman had gone back to the moon. When we got back, Rashid and Aunt Gloria were sitting on the sofa together, arm in arm. This puzzled me, as I remember what Mum says about Cat, and me having a love-hate relationship, and I worked out that was the same true of Rashid and Aunt Gloria. Mum said to Rashid that he was welcome to sleep on the couch if he wanted to, and he said, was she sure? And she said that sorry. He said that she was most kind and he would. And then Cat and I were told to go upstairs to bed. So we did.